All right, Ian Stewart from Guidehouse in the house.
Yeah, great to meet you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I'll tell you, just getting to know you the last couple of days, what I like about our conversations is just the straight talk. You're a straight talker, right? So we'll have to warn the audience. We may get into some provocative topics, but all with the spirit of doing good. We got this RCM Innovators series, and we just love having conversations with guys like you. What are you fired up about in terms of RCM, what its potential is? It could be AI, machine learning, whatever you want. What excites you, and what do you think we can get done?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I've been on this personal journey in the last maybe 5 years to advance a concept of what I call peopleless business office, peopleless coding. I don't think we'll ever get to peopleless access or check-in or other things, but to really shift revenue cycle from this prospective end of life of a claim, retrospective review, denial management, and work to create kind of a new metric in revenue cycle, which is, not clean claims, but how many claims were paid that were accurate and that were done that never had to touch any people, and got, a new clean claim rate concept to where, there's systems out there now that will do automated auth, that'll do geolocation, that'll tell the patient how to get where they're going.
Sure.
Will inform the clinicians of what was off.
Yeah.
And if they start to document something that's different, at least stop them and say, hey, if you do it, it's fine, but we need to do some things to get the payer to agree to pay us, and move all that work pre-visit, during the appointing process, self-service, and or while the clinician's still seeing the patient in real time.
Yeah.
And auto code, auto bill, auto denial follow-up, auto whatever, and truly get to what I would say is a visionary concept of peopleless middle revenue cycle, and almost peopleless.
Yeah.
Let's say it will never be fully robotic and fully automated and fully clean, but get to where instead of cost to collect on the back end at 1 or 2%, it's almost zero.
Yeah.
That's kind of been my journey for some years, and I'm we'll call it revenue cycle 2.0, revenue cycle XO, whatever it is that we would denote it to be, but that fires me up. Get up every day and start to work toward. I know what we have today, but there is a path to make that a reality.
I think we talked about this yesterday, but everything that you just said is so executable, right? Like, we can get everything you just said is either being done or can be done. So I like to say it's very often not about the tools or the technology, the availability. It's about, do you have the right culture? Do you have leadership supporting? Investing in the revenue cycle. Revenue cycle, as we all know, sometimes gets the table scraps because we put CapEx dollars and investments where they should be in clinical innovation, but we're at a point where we got to start somewhere, and there's got to be money dedicated to innovating the revenue cycle. We also have $1 trillion, waste in the industry, and half of that's administrative. So there's a fund, right? There's a fund right there. It may not be owned by private equity, but there's a fund that you can use to literally innovate, have innovation pay for it. So since you're walking the halls and, at things like this, like, what advice do you have for people to help execute, since it's all there for the taking?
Yeah.
Right? How do you get going, and what's worked for you to, make progress?
So I spent 20 plus years on the industry side, and the last 3 years really more back on the consulting side. So I have this kind of double lens where I feel like I can often lend some truth to both sides of the equation. And I think that there are some systems and some large health systems that will have the ability and capacity to fund those things on their own. I think the rest of the folks have to get into some co-oping, partnershiping.
Sure.
Most would say outsourcing. I don't know if that's the vehicle to go forward, but why would you go it alone to develop a process
Absolutely.
to intake patients in an automated way and do it for this system number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a market?
Yeah.
I know they're contextually competitors,
Yeah.
but I do think that there are some things that are block and tackle services,
Yeah.
that we eventually have to figure out how do we partner up in a way through a vendor, through a relationship.
Yeah.
And, I like the co-op concept a little bit more than the pure vendor relationship.
Absolutely.
Where can you find like-type-minded people that'll partner up and do things that'll benefit many in multiple markets and multiple things. And so, when I was an advocate, it was one big place, and we had some dollars, we could fund it, we could do it, we built it well, and it was efficient and effective, and it worked. But you're a $5 to $10 billion place, you can get that done. How do you do the same thing at a $200 to $1 billion NPSR
Absolutely.
shop? And then you have the ability to allocate your resources back to the clinical things, back to the facilities, back to robotics, back to things that are more important clinically. If you can kind of move those things out of things that you got to personally fund directly and put that into more of a mechanism where you're sharing the development, the costs, and the other things with others.
Yeah. No, I could not agree more. Data liquidity, open systems, open architecture, plug and play, wisdom of the crowd. We should all, as an industry, be focused like a laser beam on the consumer and the patient, and not rhetorically, but like truly, right? Not intellectual property models and my IP and my IP, but like, data liquidity, idea liquidity, knowledge sharing, right?
Agree.
Because there's enough to go around to, for companies to be successful and take care of their employees. Getting out of this protectionary, I think it's the only way that we're going to have really kind of leapfrog moments in innovation. So completely agree. But that's a lot. So how do you, taking that backdrop that we live in, and this stuff is hard and it's tough, and how far can we get? Like, take today and let's go forward to like 2025. And there's some great things going on, and there is some collaboration, and we have the benefit of technology being easier to plug and play, more and more open APIs. What's your take? Like, by 2025, what kind of, if there's 266 billion in just the revenue cycle, according to HFMA a couple years ago, how much can we impact that with peopleless, right? And they won't be peopleless. That's just the concept, right? We know.
Yeah, I mean, this triple aim or quadruple aim of reduce costs and reduce the overall spend of healthcare. At the end of the day, that's either going to be care, or it's going to be administrative activities that are reduced, or it's going to be people.
Yeah.
There's nothing else. That's the costs of healthcare. And facilities management, other things.
Yeah,
you
have
can
ancillary
consolidate
things
other things. But for the most part, you got to be honest, and there are certain
There's the
work
straight talk
efforts,
that I like.
there's certain work efforts that are purely administrative. I've said in the past we should simplify our coding system down to one CPT code.
Yeah.
Patient visit. Right? Patient visit, one code for E&Ms.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. We can't have up coding. We can't have down coding. We don't need coders. The system could do it for you. You'll from a Medicare perspective, it'll all work itself out to an average reimbursement rate per RVU, per this, per that, and
the actuaries right now are just losing their mind.
and the lobbyists,
and the lobbyists,
and the coding folks.
We could put in alphabetical order the people.
All my teams of folks that work for me today are unhappy. But the truth is if we were thoughtful, we've created a tremendous amount of complexity that has this administrative burden that's very expensive.
Yeah.
And there are ways. We go to one code, we go to 100 codes, we go to this. we could make some significant changes that would help pricing, that would help the consumer experience, that would help our just pure administrative cost burden.
Yep.
And those folks that do that work could still do education for, for the clinicians and optimization of EMR, and there's other work to be done, but we don't get to it because we're focused on doing those activities that are required today.
Yeah.
To get the patient, to acquire the patient, to appoint the patient, to arrive them, to clinically see them, and then to work them through this inordinately complex reimbursement model.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
We could, if you started fresh today, and you got the best minds in the world on healthcare and said, let's clear the deck, take all those other people off the table and just say, let's just be honest about where could we be if we built it new. We would not build what we have.
And let's focus like a laser beam on the consumer,
right,
and the patient and the people that surround
and the providers.
And
if you took the consumers and the providers and you took everybody else out of it, we would have a very interesting set of conversations around what's absolutely required, because they do the work and they need the activity to be done to them. The rest of us are just here as leader servants to fulfill that mechanism.
Okay, so I love that. So if you had to just pick one thing that was big and disruptive that could be realistically implemented between now and 2025,
I would personally, if I could be the healthcare revenue cycle czar of the world, I would 100%, and it's complicated. It's an easy answer with a complicated set of functional requirements. I would move to an open table type digital integrated system for patients to access the systems across the country, which means you need data, you need CRM, you need telephony, you need self-service, you need integration to the EMR in a way that we don't have today. You need to be able to communicate in multi-channels back and forth to the patients and the nurses and the doctors, but get to a true open table where we really unwind the complexities of all the types of visits and things that need to be done. For 95% of the visits, if you need a neurosurgery or a complex cardiac care case that's going to take 7 or 8 hours, we're not going to do that online. I get that. But for almost all the care in the world...
Scheduled, you're talking about like when you have
scheduling, authorizations, pricing, all in a single set of systems that can be done via self-service across a multitude of different specialties and areas.
So walk me through, I love this concept, walk me through, let's say I got to have a total knee replacement, right? And I'm in this new world. Mm-hmm. Walk me through just some of the steps. What do I do?
So in a perfect world, you'd go online through your phone, you'd pick a system in your area, you'd click on a few buttons, say what you needed, and it would come up that, hey, I'm 67, I need a knee surgery, and the system would know you.
Yeah.
It would know your medical record.
So
it would
it's going to help me with the outcomes, location and outcomes, because I want a cost quality product.
It'll know where you normally go. It'll know the providers you'd seen. It would know some of your diagnoses, and it would be smart enough that if you clicked a few buttons through guided scheduling, as I'll call it, or guided through the internet or through a phone interaction, you would eventually get to a point where it would know your insurance because you'd key it in and it could verify that you have eligibility for it and you could have that service, and it would know that locations at that service would be done. So if you were a price conscious person, you could click I'd like to do it outpatient if that's possible, or I'd like to do it facility based at this clinic, or this is near my home, and would give you the different choices that were available and in real time tell you what that would cost. Okay, interact to your insurance, know your co-insurance, your deductible, have this real-time kind of online interaction so you got a sense of what this might cost, right, or where it might be done, or what's required. Also,
and if I'm 75 and not good with technology, can my granddaughter?
Yeah, if I say guided scheduling, point and click, just like Amazon, just like OpenTable, anybody can book a table.
So you're really advocating heavy use of AI, machine learning, and all the things that exist to date that almost do some of that.
No, it exists, but it doesn't exist in a fully wrapped package that can get done. if you could do it online, you can do it on the phone, you could do it in person, you'd still follow those same business rules. But I want to be super clear. It also needs to be smart enough to say, if you need this knee surgery, your insurance has these rules. Prior auth, pre-reg, these other tests need to be done first. All of their medical management humble jumble that's online that I might know,
Sure.
the patient should know.
Yeah.
You got to jump through these 7 hoops.
Yeah.
Once these hoops are done, then you can do this. And put it in pretty plain English. You got to
Yeah.
get these 3-4 things
Basic
done,
thing.
then you can do this.
Like
and
your
you need
patient
a pre-op.
visit concept.
A
right?
very simple but extremely complex
Yeah.
use of data
Yeah.
to present all those
You're
things
speaking my language.
into that. So I liken it to this. If you do open table and you have 4 people, you can click on anything in the world and find a restaurant with 4 seats.
Yeah.
Healthcare is different. It's not just 4 seats. 1 seat's a primary care visit, 1 seat's a specialty visit, 1 seat's an ambulatory visit, 1 seat's an MRI, 1 seat's, an urgent care, one's a facility-based, walk-in care. You've got a myriad of choices.
Absolutely.
So it's not a seat at a restaurant and a table. It's hundreds of potential seats at the restaurant, all unique to a certain type of service and a certain type of provider with a certain type of set of requirements. So you need open table with all those requirements well thought out, and that as you're clicking a few buttons or you're talking to someone online, that they can route you to the right place. Then you technically and theoretically, you know what it would cost. You know what was for you to do. You know what the system had to do to complete whatever it is that's needed to authorize it, so that you can even get it done. You don't even understand it's come from a rev cycle guy, sound crazy, what you need to do to get in better shape for the surgery, what you need to do to get well from it, the type of medication you're going to need afterwards, maybe where your pharmacies are. A holistic consumerism view of everything that might happen for that knee replacement needs to be able to be done through that Amazon-like type experience. And we're not anywhere near that.
Oh, yeah.
We can make a visit, we could do some auth, we could do some of that. But if we get to this peopleless world, that has to be a reality.
Yep.
And so if we're going to focus on something for the next couple of years, it's take all that work that's done prospective to whatever event's taken place, making 27 phone calls to you, the nurse, the insurance, the doctor, your wife, whoever is the guarantor, plus 10 other people, plus after your visit, the pharmacy, then a rehab clinic maybe, then you got to get a knee thing to move your knee, then you got to have a sleeve, then your Medicare, so you got DME, you got to figure all that needs to be done in a single event or be available to somebody, just like other pieces of technology do things today. Banking,
Sure.
for instance, you get everything in one page. You rarely have to go to a branch.
Yeah.
We got to get to that.
So I love this, because this is innovation, and innovation's about big, crazy ideas, lateral thinking, right?
I don't think it's that crazy. We have
well,
all of the tech. We've just not put it together.
Not crazy.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a lot of people. We mentioned some of those groups earlier. There's a lot of incentives that would need to be aligned, right? So
in some sense.
I like this idea, though. My question is, let's say that idea was like, okay, you're the czar and you just said we're going to do this, but you've got to raise an investment fund to do it. Who invests? How do you split up? Because a lot of people in that are getting value.
Yeah.
And this comes up all the time in crazy innovative ideas. Who pays for it? The provider, the payer, the life sciences, the medical device company. So I'd love your take on
So I've read
how do you
some
split that wallet up.
I've read some. I think I was at class, and I think they did a similar question to that, like who owns which piece of this, and for the most part, it lands on the systems.
Yeah.
It lands on the systems, because even though they don't own the patient relationship, the insurance company and the employer do. The mindset to the patient is that the systems of the world own that relationship. And there's a tremendous disconnect for the patient that I work for a place, my insurance is through my HR, the HR got it through X United or Blue Cross or whatever, and now I have this magic insurance card. But the minute that I hand this to the system, to their front desk person, they own it. And most of them are investing in these technologies today, but the speed that they're investing will not get them there fast enough. And as things change and move, and expectations change and move, I think they'll ultimately have to pay for it. I do think the first movers in each large market that get it right will have all the market share they ever wanted, because patients will love it, and then eventually you'll have to, the others will follow and catch up. But I don't know that we'll ever get away from that. So I talked a little co-oping. I do think the system's partnering with the vendors to create an enterprise co-op that says, okay, we're both going to try to do this, makes a little bit more sense, because I don't think the systems will get it done mostly on their own.
Let's keep this provocative. I like this. So who owns the data?
Well, the data's owned by multiple folks. Insurance companies have data, the clearinghouse has data, the systems have data.
Yeah.
But the patients, ultimately, it's their data.
Well, that's the thing. So
you
what if it was that the patient owns their data?
They do, in a HIPAA general sense. They have access to control their data, but
now if they become, let's say that there's a patient and their heart condition there's teachable things that a medical device company would love to learn from that, so they can improve their medical device, right? So they want access to the data, and there's several data monetization strategies out there. So how does money move around in that?
Yeah,
does a patient get a piece?
If they get better?
If Medtronic buys the data because they want to learn from the data, is it like a songwriter? You write a song and 3 people write the song, and you pay each of the songwriters, and the musician gets their cut, and the producer?
Yeah, that's an interesting...
Because that's been talked about.
They've talked about nationalizing all of our data into a major database, de-identify it, so we can start to advance activities that can, better health across the board. I mean, I'm not a clinician, so it's not really my area of expertise, but I read enough to know we're not the healthiest nation.
Yeah.
And we probably have a tremendous opportunity to do things better.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly how the monetization effort gets done.
Yeah.
But the simple reality is it's going to eventually have to be out there that if there's an ability to get care that could make you better, that'll reduce the total cost of care for us as a society, I think we can figure out how to work toward that, because it's going to be less expensive, ultimately for healthcare in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so the funding has to come from that. I mean, all the dollars in the world we have are the premium dollars and the patient spend dollars. Yeah. That's it. That's the bowl of money we use for healthcare.
Yeah.
And there's not, it's
there's
self-pay
plenty,
and
20% of the GDP,
Yep.
right, to your point, and to the point around waste.
Yep.
There's enough money to work with, right? We got to get to consensus on aligned incentives and creating value for the patient.
Yeah, listen, 15 years ago, you never were going to get dog food and cat food and toilet paper and big things shipped to your house.
Yeah.
It never happened.
That's right.
You had to go pick it up at Sam's Club or some other place or a big warehouse building or whatever. Today, I'm sitting on an airplane and I order everything in flight.
Yeah.
And it shows up at my house when I get home.
Yeah.
I don't go shopping. I don't do anything. We didn't envision that day where.
And it makes recommendations, right?
It's smart enough to tell me what I should have bought when I didn't want to buy it.
Why don't you just put your paper towels on auto order, because you order them once a month, right?
Yep, same deal. We need to move healthcare to that, and many things that have become innovative over time. I just think we're behind the curve in health. We're not behind it clinically, we're not behind it in technology, but we're behind it in process. And
one of the things that I'm interested in, because I couldn't agree more, and I love the crazy thinking, right? You have to have big, bold ideas. I think a lot of consensus, if we had 100 people in this discussion from Becker's, there'd be a lot of consensus. how do you get to the pragmatic, get started, pilot, test? There has to be a wave, an evangelism. There has to be something that drives execution, because it's always, there's no shortage of ideas, and you'll get a lot of heads nodding. But it's the framework for execution, and how do you get things done?
So I've found through my travels in the last couple of years that many systems have innovation labs, and they innovate tremendously at one site or two sites, but they never scale. Yeah. And I think that's got to be incentivized by the boards to the executives, not volume, not economic outcome and benefit, but truly becoming a system of choice and a consumer-driven enterprise. And that until we change some of those incentive structures away from financials and clinical care and the way it's always been done in healthcare, I don't think that investment gets done. I think we dip our toe in it. We tell everybody, "Oh, we're doing this online," but go online in every major market and search around for your knee surgery. You'll find a couple. But they don't do it they don't do it the way we're talking about it, where it coaches, teaches, learns, knows you, identifies opportunities to make you better, focuses on wellness and other things. We're still in this bifurcated world from a reimbursement perspective of we're mostly fee for service, we're dipping our toe in quality, and there's a couple of places that are starting to get it, full risk, but it's not deep enough to really force those issues, and we're ultimately incented on the old way.
So I got the signal for our 3-minute lightning round wind down. So,
sure.
So you touched on something that I'd love your perspective on. So, pop health, value-based care. We all love the idea. Feels right. We've been talking about it for a long time, and I heard some brilliant thoughts on it by a healthcare CEO recently at a conference in Charleston. And it's like, there's only one way to do it. It's like a light switch.
It is.
It's on or off, right?
Yep.
You just, all these experiments and, but what's your take? Because it's really hard.
I said it best. It's the same dollar. It starts with premium money, and then there's patient share, co-insurance, deductibles, whatever, self-pay. You got this big pile of money, and it's being distributed, however it's being distributed, but mostly from individuals or employers to the insurance companies through some deployment mechanism for services rendered. And it's either being done on true volume, quasi-quality, some made-up metrics that folks, work to provide, or they're in some reduction of cost environment, which I find fascinating, because reducing cost means do less care or cut people or do something, but I don't think that's understood. Or it's true full risk. And we've been talking about it for 20 years, and I do really believe it is going to have to be a light switch. I've lived in both sides, where I've had full risk, I've had partial risk, and I've had fee for service in the same entity. I've even done services where I did a service for a patient and I billed myself as the insurance company, and I had to adjudicate a claim to myself. And I found that oddly administratively ridiculous and expensive. Where my full risk shop got a claim from my fee for service shop.
Right.
And I paid for the transactions in the 835s and 837s.
Sounds like healthcare and RCM.
and I find that at some point we need to either, super prerogative, but deal with that fact and say that dollar, we're shaving too much of it off through this mechanism. We need to do better. And I do think that it's got to be an all or nothing kind of a place. So the states that just say, hey, we're flipping. You got to figure it out. And then you build your infrastructure, you build your other things. But one last comment on it is, most systems do not have the infrastructure to do full risk. They have the infrastructure to make appointments and do fee for service. But they've never really thought through the fact that I already got paid for that patient. Now what do I do? And how do I do it? And all those things we talked about earlier, getting them visits, getting them in, getting them to the right place at the right time. It all works in either model. It's just how you get paid. But we can't live with the feet in each side of that reimbursement methodology and do well.
Well, we're at our time, but in a future discussion, I'd love to unpack that further with you around, I tend to be passionate about how to get things done inside of bold ideas, because bold ideas, there's a lot of people that are going to be challenging, right? So you have to take that into consideration. It has to be built into the calculus, and there's a lot of complexity, like your earlier. There's a lot of complexity in how you move from this to this, short of locking all the lobbyists in a closet. There are good lobbyists.
There are plenty, but it's like my coding. Like you get single payer, solves a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Irritates a lot of people.
Yep.
And upends a lot of lobbyists. And same with the billing and coding. It's like I can build you a simplified model.
Yeah.
Where we don't have any compliance issues. We never have to deal with fraudulent coding and one code, man. And you don't have any of that. You can't.
We'll
mess
have
it
to
up.
tackle the heavy lifting in a future discussion.
Absolutely.
I just want to say, really appreciate you. Thanks. That was great. This is what these conversations are meant to be about: is big, bold ideas and provoking questions. So appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I think there's.
You
some
brought
good
the straight
stuff.
talk.
Well,
all right. Thanks, Ian.
Good. All right, cool, man.